Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So I had a request to look at a comparison between Linux Mint Xfce and Linux Lite Xfce. And so I hadn't looked at any of these particularly just because the Xfce desktop is not my favorite, although I like the way that it can be set up like a Windows platform, which is good. The Xfce implementation I usually run, like I run on my little netbook computer, is Peppermint, so I'm familiar enough with it. It's just, if I'm running a regular desktop computer, I prefer something more modern like Cinnamon. So I went ahead and I downloaded both of these distros, and we're just going to boot each of these up in a virtual box and have a look. So before we do that, when you're considering a Linux GNU desktop environment, the desktop environment itself usually is the most indicative as to what the operating system is going to be like. So since we're going to look at two Xfce desktops, they're going to be very similar. The question is, are there enough differences in between them that it makes a difference whether you're running the Linux Mint version or whether you're running the Linux Lite version? So we're going to have a quick look at these. Of course, the Linux Mint website is linuxmint.com, and if you hit the download page, you can see the various options. So 18.1 has Cinnamon, Mate, Xfce, and KDE. So this computer here is running Linux Mint KDE. The computer we are recording on is Linux Mint Cinnamon, and this is Linux Mint Cat. Okay. Every time I start talking, he comes over and wants to say hi. So Kitty will be visiting us for a while, apparently. I think I do have a Mate Linux Mint floating around somewhere here. So if that's true, I actually have a copy of all of these now. So that's kind of nice. Linux Lite is linuxliteos.com, and you can come over to their website and have a look at what their platform looks like. So Linux Lite is, yeah, I know. See, this is a problem with running ad blockers. It looks like you're using an ad blocker. That's okay, who doesn't? But we need your support. We're currently losing 42% of our income due to ad blockers. I understand. All right. So I'm just going to click on this. Now, I run an ad blocker on this, by the way, because if I'm using this browser to show you different web pages, I don't need a bunch of pop-ups and video ads and stuff like that. Now, it is always good if you're using these distros as a regular basis, then you want to make sure that you are supporting these distros, send a donation to them, or in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and disable the ad blocker on this page, unless they give me crazy, messed up pop-up ads all over the place, in which case I will disable it again. We'll go ahead and reload that with the ad blocker disabled. And I'm going to definitely do that. And I don't mind doing that for most sites. It's just when you're kind of crazy and intrusive and you're a big media site and you have more ads than you have content, and I accidentally click on your site on a video, I don't need the hassle of video ads playing when I'm trying to do something here. Although this computer can take it, it's not like I'm losing system resources. However, all of that being said, disabling ad blocker on known trusted sites is a good way to support a site without having to actually throw your own cash at it. Although throwing your own cash at it through their donation button would not be bad, and I have no affiliation with Linux Lite or Linux Mint Cinnamon or Linux anything else at this point in time. I'm kind of my own guy running around doing this stuff. So with all that being said, you can come over here and look at your system requirements. So your system requirements for Linux Lite are a 700 megahertz processor, 512 megabytes of RAM. You need at least 1224 by 768 resolution and some way to import the ISO image. The preferred specs are 1.5 gigahertz processor, 1 gig of RAM, 1366, and of course the media to import everything. So I think my computer somewhat has that handled. Let's just do a quick double check, make sure. Yeah, I got 30 gigs of RAM. I think we're good. In fact, that's what I'm liking about this computer is that I'm giving my virtual boxes 8 gigs of RAM. They run like a native system, and I'm still recording HD video at the same time. I'm liking it. All right. Linux Mint. What we're going to do, we're going to have a quick... I want to come over here and see if I can find specific requirements to the Xfce. Just want to see if there's any specific requirements listed. Okay, so 512 megabytes of RAM, but 1 gig is recommended. Looks like most things are about the same. They're not telling me what processor we need, but I'm going to assume that any modern processor is going to run this. If I pull out the old Windows 98 native laptop out of my closet, it probably will not run this, but you never know. All right. So I downloaded these. I checked all their hashes. I downloaded them with transmission over torrents and checked their hashes directly from inside the torrents. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and load them up. So there's my nice GNOME Mate and KDE logo. I built these images in Blender, actually, open source 3D animation studio. Whoa, that's not what I want to do. There we are. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm not going to install these. We're just going to boot these into a live key, so keep that in the back of your mind as well. Just for frame of reference, just in case. Now, both of these have been released in the last within the last month, and it does not look like there's any major updates. There is going to be one program that I install on the Linux Mint one. So first we're going to load up Linux Lite. So we're going to boot this guy up, and let's... what we're going to do here is I'm going to full screen these and see if they'll go full screen without having to install the guest editions information. So both of these platforms are also based on Ubuntu 16.04 LTS. So I'm expecting that they're going to be very similar. And I just had a brief 5-minute walk through each of them before the video. So this is not going to be the most super comprehensive thing you've ever seen in your life. We're just going to have a look here. Okay, so it looks like this one right out of the box. That's not giving me the full screen show. Let me see if I can actually make it any larger though. Looks like I might actually be able to make it larger. Let's do a larger screen there. Hey, that looks a little bit better. There we go. Not sure why it says I'm off the network. You can't see the notification that popped up there, but let me just move my image there a little bit just in case we do have notifications. All right, so here we have a nice pop-up box that shows up, and we have the ability here to install updates and drivers. We can upgrade hardware recommendations. So we have a lot of information here to help us out when we first log in. It looks like our theming is kind of a flat modern theming. Again, it has the Linux Mint icons installed here, which I'm not a huge fan of these. But at least they're not the monotonous, completely flat ones. I mean, honestly, when I first looked at Linux Mint, I loved everything about it out of the box except the icons. To me, it looked like they were cut off, and I thought, the icons don't display properly. I literally thought that. And so, with that being said, it's... everything though looks good. It looks like a modern UI. Little flat for my taste, but it certainly is good. It is hooked up very much like a Windows type platform. We have a minimize all options, and let's see. Just trying to remember how to run all this, and the cat's wanting to move around a little bit. Hey, you want to go? Here. There you go. All right. Kitty was kind of getting in my way there. All right, so we're going to move this. I always like putting my desktop icons over there, just like in Windows. Throw the mouse in the bottom corner, click, and then you can minimize all the windows. That's just kind of what I like to do because I work off the desktop, and so nice and easy to work. So our right-click menu here, these are going to be pretty similar in that the desktop environment is going to be what controls more of the design of the computer than anything else. What's going to differ is the package managers, the software repositories, and things like that. So we're going to see what the options are. Before we do anything, though, let's have a look at our processes. And actually, I think HTOP is on this thing. Let me see. All right, so here we're running 400 megabytes is what this is telling me we're running right now. And out of 8 gigs of RAM, so we're running pretty good. You can see, let's see, processors really aren't doing anything right now. There's 4 processors I've assigned here, and we're not doing pretty much anything. Nothing's going on, essentially. So our packages out of the box, let's see, we have a lot of settings options here. We can probably change our icons to something a little bit better if you like. So here's your icons, more modern icons, and then a lot of icons here to choose from, it looks like. High contrast. Oh, the humanity. That was a bad joke, I know. Fantastically fantastic. All right. Some Ubuntu. All right. Let's just go with what the defaults are, I think. For now, we're not going to mess around with too much here. Then you can change around your colors a little bit. All right. So, other settings, let's see here. We have Application Finder, Archives, Backups, Calculator, Search Function, Screenshot, Terminal, Text Editor. Graphics, we have GIMP, Image Viewer, Scanner. Internet, we have Firefox, Network Connections, Online Support, Thunderbird, VLC, we have a CD burner, and we have our volume controller. We have, I'm guessing this is LibreOffice. Yep, LibreOffice. I'm not sure because some of the lighter distributions like Ubuntu actually comes with WPS, at least the one that I have installed comes with WPS. And so I wasn't sure if it was going to come with the lighter version or not. And by the way, maybe what I might do eventually here is a little compare and contrast. Because I've been getting ready for tax time, of course, and with tax time coming around the corner, I'm working on getting all of my, everything into my spreadsheets and stuff because I'm a super robo nerd. And I'll tell you, I use WPS for the first half of it, and I use LibreOffice for the second half of it. And in my opinion, LibreOffice just blows WPS out the window. I think it's called WPS. Is that right? Somebody's going to correct me if I said that wrong, but it's the package that came installed on Ubuntu, and I didn't know it was actually there. So when I installed my secure banking software, then I actually I went ahead and installed LibreOffice. So I used both of them on there, and I love LibreOffice a whole lot better. There's our PDF viewer and basic system tools. So we are pretty light. We're light on our use. We have a nice clean desktop here. Not a whole lot going on in the background, but exactly what you might expect from a very light distribution. It's desktop settings. I just want to see what types of images we come pre-installed here. Some nice images. Oh, that's fun. That's I believe that's Dead Horse Point. I've an actual picture I took of myself there. I don't have a picture of that. That's pretty sweet. First time I've seen a car in a Linux picture. Some Xfce logo desktops there. All right. Okay, so that's essentially what we have. Very nice. I like the UI. I mean, it is flatter than I usually prefer, but it's actually, I like it. It's a very nice system. In fact, somebody was leaving a comment on one of my videos like, you can't get a Linux distro that's as clean as Windows 10. Pfft, I think this is as clean as Windows 10. It's nice. It's clean. I can actually set a dark theme. Let me go ahead and just show you how to run a dark theme in here. Let's see. So there's a darker theme. So if you want a darker theme, you can do that. All right. We have a lot of options here. All right. So there's the Linux Lite, and come over here. It's very nice, modern, very fast. 400 megabytes is what the memory was. We saw the software installed, so now we're going to have a look. Oh, I logged out. I should have. I was supposed to shut down. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and boot up Linux Mint Xfce. Once again, we're going to be loading it into the just into a live key. Bypass that just by pushing enter, and then enter again to load in the current selected item, which was the first operating system. And then we'll see if this goes into full screen without having to make the settings first. So here we are booted in, and we did not have to make any settings changes right away. And the only major difference it's giving us here is I don't see the workspace switcher right away. So if the workspace switcher is something that you definitely want, you're going to need to add it to the panel. That's definitely not a big deal. If you don't use it, then you don't use it. Let's see. Let's just do a right click, desktop settings, and just have a look at the backgrounds available over here. Okay, so it's kind of loading from the bottom up. So these are all of the same wallpapers we have. I think this is the one I used to run over here. A lot of the same wallpapers we have in the rest of the Linux Mint distros. I'm familiar with all of these. Very nice desktop backgrounds. Let's pick one that's pretty cool. All right, that's not too bad. All right. So if I recall correctly, I think HTOP was not installed here, so we're just going to go ahead and install HTOP. All right, so this one here, it looks like this one here is running 585 megabytes of memory right now. Processors do not appear to be doing anything, just a little bit there. So it does look like Linux Lite is running on slightly less resources, although if you're running a modern computer, I'm not sure I'd call 100 megabytes a significant difference. But if you are on a 2 gig system, every 100 megabytes does actually count. That's actually why I switched. My netbook computer used to have Ubuntu installed on it. But you know that takes about a gig to run, and so I wiped that off and put Peppermint on it instead. And so Peppermint only runs on about, I think, 400 megabytes of memory as well. And so I freed up 25% of the system resources by switching to an Xfce desktop. So there's HTOP, that's working. Everything else here, Linux Mint is going to it's going to basically be the Linux Mint you're used to. You can, of course, change your icons here. It looks like we have a little bit more icon packs to pick from. If you do like the flat monotone icons, there is an option for those here that was not available on Linux Lite. So if you do want to use those flat modern UI icons, and you want to use Linux Lite, then you'll have to install the icon pack. It looks like everything else is pretty standard here. Okay, we'll just go ahead and keep it on this one. And then we have, we can have the same, it looks like about the same color sets. Now, one of the things in the Linux Mint theme settings is they do put a whole lot more into the themes, and so some people complain that UI doesn't always look as good on a Linux system if you moved between toolkits and whatever else. Well, the thing, if you're using a Linux Mint theme on Linux Mint Cinnamon particularly, they've actually put a lot into it to get all the themes to match as closely as possible. And so you're probably going to have some similar elements here that if you pick one of some of the Linux Mint themes, you're going to have a little bit, you're going to have some more of those elements that are a little bit more put together. Just trying to see if there's anything that more matches my like. So I like this one here, just that it's not super duper flat, although pretty much all these themes out of the box are flatter than I like. That one's not too bad either. Again, that's all just matter of preference. But it's nice that they have a lot of extra themings options available there. So here, let's have a look at the software installed. So basic accessories, the same accessories you'll find under Linux Mint. Probably a few more resources and tools that you don't generally find. I like the fact there's USB stick formatters, writers. We just still have a writing software. So there's a few more system tools in Linux Mint. So if you are requiring a lot of your system tools, you're going to want to keep that in mind as you're making your decision which one of these two you want to run. Need the extra system utilities, you might want to run Linux Mint. If you know you don't need the extra system utilities, the Lite will save you some deleting or extra items. It looks like the same applications: GIMP, Picture, and Simple Scanner, Firefox, Hex, Pigeon, Thunderbird, Transmission. I don't remember if Pigeon was installed on Linux Lite. We have Rhythmbox here. Rhythmbox was not installed on Linux Lite. Here we have Rhythmbox mostly for music and your media player for movies or music. And the Linux Lite only had the VLC player. We do have the option to install the extra multimedia codecs here, which I'm guessing, since it's here, this is probably not going to be here on an actual install. That's my guess. We have the full LibreOffice installed over here, and all of the basic settings that I would anticipate. Let's see the settings manager. All right, so here's your settings manager. Appearance, here's your desktop. So here's, I can set more icons on the desktop if I need more icons on the desktop. You know what I did not have a look at is the software sources in Linux Lite. I forgot to do that. But it's the Ubuntu base like they have here, and a Linux Mint, like a Linux Lite base, which Linux Lite is based on a amalgam of Debian and Ubuntu. Now, something that they did have installed on the in the software repositories on Linux Lite that I'm not sure about here. I'm waiting for this to load to see. They had Wine repositories already installed, so I'm not sure if this is going to have Wine already in the repositories, if they're in the Linux Mint repositories or not. But they are specifically attached to the most recent repositories for Wine. But I did check because I'm a little critical of a lot of modern Linux systems coming in and pre-installing Wine by default so they can advertise that you can run Windows programs too. And in reality, you can't always run Windows programs just because Wine is on there. And the thing about Wine, though, is that if it's installed and you do not have an intention of attempting to install a Windows program, you are allowing malicious code, Windows-based code, to run on your computer. It is possible for that to happen. And so keeping Wine uninstalled unless you absolutely need it is good. And I recommend Play on Linux if you are going to use Wine, because you can compartmentalize your applications inside a little virtual box and You can even choose your version of Wine because, some programs will work really good until you upgrade Wine to the latest version. It might break something in the program. And so we want to keep that in mind. So here it looks like Wine is available if you do need it. Neither of these systems comes with Wine out of the box, so that's good. So that is, in a nutshell, the Linux Mint Xfce versus Linux Lite Xfce. Not a whole lot of differences in these distros. Very similar code base, very similar programs. It does look like in our base test here, it does look like Linux Lite does operate on a little bit less RAM. So if saving RAM is your primary means of wanting to run the system, the Linux Lite is going to have that. If you do need a system that works well, is light on memory, but has a lot of system tools, then the Linux Mint seems to have more system tools available to you. And so keeping that in mind as you are considering which one of these to run. Either one, Xfce, very similar file managers, very similar implementation. The theming is going to be the same. We have a few more wallpapers to choose from on the Linux Mint, but usually you'll use something generic or come up with your own wallpaper anyway. I did not, I guess there was an update manager, like an update thing on the start screen, at least on the Linux Lite. And on the Linux Mint, the update manager was inside of the settings panel there, if you did not see that. So that is kind of a nutshell, Linux Mint Xfce versus Linux Lite Xfce. Very, very similar code base, both based on Ubuntu. Linux Lite uses Debian as a backup. Linux Mint just, of course, uses Linux Mint as their backup. I did spot check a few programs. I didn't do it here in the video, but I did spot check a few programs. They did all seem to run the similar versions. And that's actually is a difference, because I know if I looked on my Ubuntu computer, my Ubuntu 16.10 runs some out-of-date programs compared to my Linux Mint computers. And so that's another thing to keep in mind, is that you might want to look as to where and what versions from the repositories different software packages are coming from. In this case, they're both based on Ubuntu 16.04 LTS, and the Linux Lite uses Debian as an additional code base, and of course the Linux Mint is Linux Mint. And so if I were to be forced to make a choice about which one of these I'd install, I'd probably just do the Linux Mint Xfce, just because I'm so familiar with the Linux Mint, and I know it's stable on my system, and I just don't have as much experience with the Linux Lite. However, all that being said, if you do have an absolute bare bones minimal system resources, the Linux Lite is slightly lower on the system RAM, according to what my computer is spitting out here in a VirtualBox and a live key. So those are the brief comparisons. I don't think you're going to go wrong with either one. And very comparable, very similar software packages, very similar sizes. I think the Linux Lite was, if downloading is an option for you, Linux Lite was, I think, 600 megabytes lighter. Let me have a quick look. It would help if I go to the right folder. Okay, so Linux Lite is about 1 gigabyte. Linux Mint Xfce is about 1.8 gigabytes. So it's about 800 megabyte difference. So if one of your factors of concern is the size of the download, Linux Lite is a lot easier on the system to download than is the Linux Mint. So that is my general thoughts. That is essentially what my thoughts are on those things, and I hope for you who asked that question, or for other people interested, I hope that is a helpful comparison. And let me know if there is something you would like me to look at specifically. Let me know in the comments. Send me a direct message. Either one will work. I think there's actually a contact form on my website that might get to me. I don't know. I haven't tested it in a while. But anyway, leaving the comments in the YouTube videos is usually the best. If I come up with a good idea, I usually keep a written log of those, and so I just cross them off, because I'm an archaic barbarian who uses lists on paper. Go figure. My work log is on paper. Oh, that from the geekiness. All right. So anyway, this has been Tom, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.